Good evening. This is the Ogden City Special Redevelopment Agency meeting for December 18th, 2012. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present with the exception of council member Heyer and chair, board member Heyer, and trustee Heyer.
Board members
Sorry,
here.
board member.
Board member Heyer and chair Garner, who have asked to be excused. First on the agenda is report from administration.
Mr. Cooper is going to present. He's wearing his money green today.
Mayor Mark, members of the board, thank you for being here tonight. What we'd like to formally introduce to you this evening is a project that is called the Trackline Business Park. And for your consideration, we have two proposed resolutions relative to the project. The first resolution is Resolution 2012-15, which is approving the terms and conditions of a participation agreement that we've entered into with the proposed developer. And secondly is proposed Resolution 2012-16, authorizing the preparation of a draft economic development project area plan and budget to place over the project. So I'll comment on both of those in just a moment. By way of history, this area is located in Lower West Ogden, just off of B Avenue, an exchange between the river and the Weber County transfer station. It's historically been known as the Coliseum or the Ogden Stockyards. In 1989, it was created as a redevelopment area, with the hopes of a malt company to come and set up shop and be the catalyst for growth and development of that project area. After the project area was implemented and approved, the incumbent proposed tenant never materialized, and so the area sat dormant and underutilized and blighted prior to that and since then. We reinvigorated the idea of a business park there last year, started looking at the feasibility of such an idea, started working with potential tenants, recruiting potential developers, and so today we've gotten to a point where we have drafted a participation agreement with the proposed developer that allows us to study the feasibility of the project and the main components of the project. The first main component of the project would be the price of acquisition for the land. The second would be the development costs. The third being floodplain mitigation, things like that. So what is before you this evening is, again, the resolution to approve the development agreement, or excuse me, the participation agreement. It's also, the participation agreement is for the purpose of allowing us to go through that feasibility determination with the developer and allow the developer to lead the way. A lot of these project areas developers pass by entirely because of the perceived risk. And so tonight, with this participation agreement approval, we would have the opportunity to work with the developer through the acquisition process and through the feasibility process to come to a determination of feasibility. Some of the terms of the agreement would allow for a repurchase of the options that the developer would acquire through that feasibility process in the event that feasibility in the event the project was determined infeasible. And so that's the major component of the participation agreement is the buyback of those options. The cost of those options would be around $60,000 to the agency in the event that the project was determined infeasible. So based on our preliminary investigation of the project area and the proposed developer, we feel comfortable entering into this type of an agreement. It allows us to escalate and bring forward some of that work that typically takes a long time and could cost a lot more money than what we've proposed it to cost at this point. In the event the project is determined viable and feasible, then the developer would close on the options that they've acquired. There would be no requirement to the agency to purchase those options. They would close and move forward with the development. And then we would enter into a separate agreement that would stipulate certain incentives and other things that would be required to make the project go. So that would be an additional agreement that we would bring before you at the appropriate time after we've determined feasibility of the project. So that's the first resolution before you. The second resolution would be 2012-16. Again, we are anticipating the need for financial incentives to make the project feasible, and because of that, we are proposing to apply an economic development area to the project, and per state statute, we're required to come to you to receive authorization to prepare the draft plan. And so that's what the resolution is requesting. There's a whole series of steps that we would have to go after the draft plan is created and put out for public comment, and we'll be coming back to you for those at the appropriate time. So those are the two resolutions in a nutshell. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Brandon, can you talk a little bit about, so the RDA's risk is basically $60,000, and if this doesn't work out, can you talk a little bit about what might happen to that investment?
Well, the investment would buy us the option agreements, which would give us control of the ground. So there's quite a few steps in determining the feasibility that I mentioned. And so if we determined that the project was infeasible, then we would have the option to buy those option agreements for the $60,000. We would then retain the ability to purchase the ground that those option agreements cover, and that would allow us to go and discuss negotiations with other developers instead of losing those options and then having to come back and renegotiate all of the land transactions all over again. At that point, land would have escalated in price, and we would have been paying premiums for the same things that we would have paid for otherwise.
Okay, so I understand that. So help me understand, I mean, if it's not feasible for one developer, what's going to make it feasible for a potential future one?
Different developers have different constraints. It could be cash flow, it could be timing, it could be capacity. So what works for one developer isn't always the same for the other. And so if in the event we determine that the project is infeasible in and of itself, regardless of the agency's capacity or the developer's capacity, and there's a mitigating factor that is insurmountable, then that buyback would give us options that we would never execute on, and that $60 would just go towards that for the experience.
Question that I'd have too is, I thought this was Weber County property, isn't it? Is it not?
On the map here, where the blue lines are that says future transload spurs, the majority of that property is county. The rest of the property is privately owned. So the majority of the project area, which is 100 acres, all of it but I think that's 20 acres there, is owned by private owners.
So it's private ownership, okay, and we're just buying options, basically.
Correct. The developer's gone out and negotiated option contracts for 60 of those 100 acres, and as part of the feasibility process, this agreement would allow us to buy those options in the event the developer backed off. And that way we would not be forced to start over all again with a new developer.
So we're really just banking land, basically, for future development.
Well, we'd hope it's
We're hoping it's a
near-term development.
near term, but regardless.
It's actually protecting the investment, right. We've spent a lot of time and money, not us personally, but the developer has spent a lot of time and money acquiring these option contracts and negotiating with these property owners. And so if in the event he goes away, we still have something tangible to work with, and we're not starting over paying a premium for the same thing that we have today.
Well, that's in the contract then, so I mean, that's just part of it. The other thing I'd like to ask is, it is the Ogden Stockyard, and there is a historic building there, even though it's burnt out or whatever. Is there any anticipation of this developer reusing that? I mean,
the
it's
building-
a wonderful building. It's down by the main road, I think.
Right here.
Yeah,
So that's the exchange building, the old Union Stockyard Exchange building.
Right.
It is under contract as part of the option agreements that we would be purchasing back in the event that this didn't go. This is really the hub of the project. It's to be the administration building of the project once it's complete, and so the leasing office and a cafe and some office space are planned for that. We're actually pursuing historical tax credits right now to restore the building on behalf of the developer. So this is a joint partnership, and we very much want to see that building back into productive use
absolutely. Yeah.
and restored.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that, because I just think sometimes those are overlooked, and it's easy just to clean it off and start over, but that
Yeah.
is a really significant piece of Ogden history.
Well, the entire area is significant, and so we've tried to work with the landowners to, as they have done some demolition work, to capture some of the historical elements of the site, little things here and there, old troughs and some wood and things like that, so that we can re-implement and reinstitute back into the project. So it's important to us.
I think that's a great idea, do something like that.
Yeah, I've been real concerned about the troughs that are out there, and I've had some conversations because those troughs are original to that building and be wonderful for any place in the city. Right, Jay?
Brandon, can you touch on, just review what goes into a feasibility study? What do you look at is in a study like that?
First and foremost is the cost of ground. That's obviously one of the biggest factors in whether or not a project is feasible. And so we've done a lot of analysis in what we think the project's worth, but in order to really get to the brass tacks of feasibility, we actually had to go and acquire the property through option. And so number one would be property acquisition. Number two would be environmental condition. And we are lucky enough to have EPA grant funding to allow us to go out and survey the property, determine its environmental condition, and determine a cleanup plan if necessary. So that's a big component. Your financial mechanisms, how you'll fund the project, is part of feasibility, so determining what funding mechanisms are available. In this case, tax increment finance will be heavily employed and will be a key component of whether or not the project is feasible. Market study is also part of the feasibility determination, so we would go out, when I say we, I mean the developer, that's part of their undertaking, would go out and look at the market, look at comparable sites, what they're getting for rents and for sale price, look at what's coming online in the next 3 to 5 years, look at who the tenants are. So those are the major components of this agreement in determining the feasibility for this project. And the majority of that is the developer's undertaking. Again, we're handling the environmental studies and some of the soil studies, but they're handling obviously acquisition, the market study, and the financial analysis.
Do you do a study on the developer, see what his track record would be and what his financial condition would be?
At this point, we're comfortable with their capacity. We've done a preliminary study in terms of what they've done in the past, their track record, their financial capacity. We've got statements from them showing us what some of their books look like, nothing formal. It's when we get to the development agreement when we're actually putting together the structure of the project and really bringing that relationship together for a long period of time that we'll fully vet them with all of the typical requirements, financial statements, tax returns, things like that.
You feel comfortable?
At this point, we feel comfortable with our partner, yeah. We have no reason to stop at this point. Any other questions?
I understand the development area is, the RDA area was established in 1989. How long will that run?
It's originally set for 32 years, so the end date of that project area would be 2021. I think, tax year 2022. And because it was established under old law, it really doesn't do much for us in terms of the incentives that we need from the project area. And so that's why we're proposing to set a new type of a mechanism in place, which is an economic development area. Under State Code 17C, we're allowed to pursue that analysis, and we think that by doing that, we'd get the mechanisms that we need to make the project feasible. And if that comes to fruition, then we would terminate the old project area.
What would be the life of the area then, from then on?
We'd propose 20 years.
20 years, okay.
And we've done some notification to the taxing entity committee preliminarily, so they don't read this in the news. And we'll be working with them through the required process to determine that.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Motion.
Yeah. I move that we, what am I trying to do here? That we approve the proposed resolution 2012-15.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from from Board Member Van Hoosier on Resolution 2012 approving Resolution 2012-15, and a second from Board Member Gochner. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Gochner,
Aye.
Board Member Board Member Stevens,
Aye.
Board Member Van Hoosier,
Aye.
Board Member Wicks,
Aye.
Acting Chair Blair.
Aye, that passes.
If there's no further discussion, I'll make a proposal that we adopt Resolution 2012-16.
I'll second it.
We have a motion from Board Member Gochner to approve Resolution 2012-16, and a second from Board Member Van Hoosier. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Stevens,
Aye.
Board Member Van Hoosier,
Aye.
Board Member Wicks,
Aye.
Board Member Gochner,
Aye.
Acting Chair Blair.
Aye, that passes. Thank you. Next is public comments. This is an opportunity to address the board regarding your concerns or ideas for the Ogden Redevelopment Agency. Any takers? No. Comments from the RDA Executive Director?
I have nothing at this time.
Other RDA staff
I don't have anything either, thank you.
and board members? No. Next on the agenda is consideration of adjourning into a closed executive session.
I have reviewed the purpose of the session and compared that with the provisions of state law, and I approve of taking a closed executive session for that purpose.
I'll make a motion to go into a closed executive session for the reasons outlined in the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion from Board Member Wicks to adjourn into a closed executive session, and a second from Board Member Gochner. This is a roll call vote.
Hoosier,
Aye.
Board Member Wicks,
Aye.
Board Member Gochner,
Aye.
Board Member Stevens,
Aye.
Acting Chair Blair.
Aye. We'll adjourn into a closed executive session.
Need a motion? I'm sorry, excuse me. We will adjourn from the closed session and then adjourn in the conference room.
In the conference room?
Yeah.
Okay.